That is of pecuniary interest. I do have 2 comments.
And are they under mayor's reports, or just?
Yes.
Did you want to add them to the agenda, or are you just
No,
making the
no, I
comment?
just do them at the top.
Okay, that's ready to roll.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we are all set to go.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. I look and I see we do in fact have a quorum of council. Welcome council back and welcome SLT. I call this meeting Monday, November 16th at 5:38 p.m. in session. Madam Clerk, approval of agenda.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, on a motion by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hahn, be it resolved that the agenda for the November 16th, 2020 regular meeting of council be adopted. If you wish to call for any additions or changes to the agenda.
Any changes? Oh, I see Councillor Hildebrand. Councillor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the clerk. Unfortunately, at the last minute, I sent through a possible amendment to 10.2.2, which is the procedural bylaw update. Do I need to state that I'm making an amendment to the motion presented?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, you can make that amendment when we are at item 10.2 on the agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments, questions on the agenda? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. I will do the vote, starting with Councillor Hahn, please.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously. Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest.
Yes, and as the clerk has stated, after viewing the agenda, does any council member have your pecuniary interest or general nature thereof to declare? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk, please note. Before we continue on with the agenda, I just have 2 quick notes I'd like to bring to council's attention. Number 1, Pelham Cares is in their 2nd week of their food campaign drive. As of last week, they're at 750 food boxes out of a target of 1,200. So they have another 3 weeks yet to go in their campaign. And they have so far received $4,300 in donations, again, with 3 weeks to go. And last year, out of the whole campaign, they had $4,000. So COVID is definitely not hindering the generosity of this community. And let's hope that they continue to be supported as like this for the remaining 3 weeks. Second thing I'd like to comment on, second group actually, is the 613 at the Royal Canadian Legion, 613 being the Fawn Hill branch. I'd just like to again thank them for for putting their Remembrance Day service on, even in these difficult times. I had a very small part in it. It was a privilege to be there, and I believe I saw Councillor Olson and Councillor Hildebrand also in attendance. The attendance was not as great as previous years, but that's exactly how it was planned. They did have Niagara College in to do live streaming, and many residents, of course, stayed home and watched it that way. I believe Councillor Olson, you had something also to add on that.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I was pleased to be able to attend the Remembrance Day services at 613. And I want to mention also and Councillor Hewson was there as well and spoke. But your speech was very well received, and I had many favorable comments, and I believe represented our council and our town very well. And I also want to say thank you to our staff for facilitating the work of Pelham Cares, because this would not be possible without the assistance of the town staff. The other thing I want to mention is the fact that volunteers everywhere, because we're exceptionally blessed with the number of people who volunteer for the various community projects we have. And I've often said that the whole world would grind to a halt if it wasn't for our volunteers and certainly our frontline workers. And I wanted to remark on President Tony McKelvey's remarks at the Legion. And she urged us to pick up the phone and make contact with somebody who might be alone at this time. And I want to make the point that small things can mean everything. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I gave Councillor Olson a chance. It wouldn't be fair, of course, if there was any other comments from any other councillor on any of the above or any thing they want to talk to before we get into this agenda. Not seeing any, then we will, I know the clerk doesn't like these diversions from the agenda, and I apologize. Madam Clerk, what's next on the agenda?
Through Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is the COVID-19 update from the Community Emergency Management Coordinator, Fire Chief Limburner.
Okay, thank you. And so this will be the Fire Chief. Fire Chief, you have the floor.
Mayor, Council, Senior Management, our leadership team, and all residents who are watching us tonight. Just a couple updates here. So as of today, Pelham has a total case count of 64 with 7 active. We currently have 1 municipality with 0 active cases. Our numbers are starting to come down. We've had last couple of weeks been pretty rough. Across the region, we had 21 today to bring us a total of 1,842. We have 203 active, 1,559 recovered, and our death rate is at 79. Across the province, which isn't faring near as well as the region, we had big numbers again today. Ontario has 97,371, and we have 3,408 deaths. Canada, we're at 296,000 total cases with 236,000 resolved. Our deaths there are 10,953. Across in the Niagara region, our case doubling time is 45 days. Our reproduction date is at 1. You'll see that go up a little bit in the next couple of days. Our positivity rate's at 2.4. We currently have 13 outbreaks in the region. We've had 65 outbreaks resolved. Some of those outbreaks involve care facilities. Across the infection side of things, we're sitting at 53.2% females and 46% or 46.8% males. 64.2% of is due to close contact, 24% community spread, and travel at 6.5. As far as cases go, 92% of your cases are home isolation. So starting today, the province has moved into the orange, which is referred to as restricted. I sent council the link if you want to read that whole framework. They broke it into color categories. We're in the orange. And the Niagara Health has added a Section 22, a class order under Section 22 of the Health Protection and Promotion Act, which further restricts the new orange that Niagara is in. It basically focuses on your restaurants, your food and drink establishments. And it's kind of listed in my report that I had sent to council this afternoon. So we're really trying to, Dr. Hergy is really focusing on trying to limit contact in our social settings and try to improve our numbers. far as in town here, our minor hockey will be allowed spectators, but only for parents that have children under the age of 18. We still are holding our maximum numbers in the rinks, but the orders speak to parents being allowed in, so under 18. The province also issued earlier this week, the province under the Ministry of Labor has asked us to develop a more specific emergency plan that addresses the pandemic, which I'll be working on the next few days. And as far as the enforcement goes, the region has increased enforcement activities. They are enforcing 7 days a week. They have a crew out there. They're asking us and the police to work with them, cooperate with them on the weekend. And just a case in point, Niagara Falls, they had a vacation rental where they laid, I believe, 17 or 18 single Part 1 infractions, which $880 per infraction. So 17 to 18 people got those. And the owner of the Airbnb was an out-of-towner. That person was served a Part 3, which will end up into the courts and could probably result in thousands of dollars worth of fine. So as I've said before, the region, the municipalities, the police, everybody's getting tired of the groups of people that are ignoring the rules. They're the main contributors for our increases. And you're going to start seeing, we're going to get past the education portion of it, and we're going to be going into the enforcement part, and which is going to hopefully change some people's attitudes. So that's the end of my report. If anybody has any questions.
I thank you for that report, Chief. I don't see any questions. I don't know if the CAO is going to bring this up, but since the Section 22 that you referred to is a special condition brought down by our acting Dr. Hergy, acting Doctor of Health. I imagine my own, and I know, and I imagine Ms. Hewson's email has been lit up considerably the last 2 days. The restaurant associations in Ontario or in the region have indeed got the members to have a special council meeting on Wednesday at 4:30 to discuss that Section 22, and we'll see where that situation goes. Next is the treasurer to give her report on COVID. Ms. Quinlan, you have the floor.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to report on the finances. As council is aware, the town has applied for the phase 2 funding for COVID-19. Part of the report required us to project to December 31st what the financial results would be for the town. This report has been sent to the Finance and Audit Committee, and the committee is meeting on November 25th, so we can go through that report with the committee next week. But what it's showing right now is that we have a potential shortfall of about $221,000 from the expenses in the revenue. One of the things that part of the report, we had to break out, so we actually went line by line of the whole budget. So line by line, we had to determine, what were the non-COVID expenses, non-COVID related revenues, what were the COVID-related additional expenses, what were the COVID-related, revenue losses, and so each line we went through and put them in those columns. So with that, the total net revenue losses and expense increases is about $1.2 million. We did have mitigation. The mitigation that the town did was we had 32 staff laid off and also 11 library staff. So the report that we submitted for the phase 2 included the libraries, so they consolidated with us. So their losses and their lost revenue and additional expenses were included in our report. So whenever we receive, we will give them their portion. So the total staff reductions for the library and for the town is about $704,000. That was the mitigation. We had a report on, what was the deferral of capital projects, and ours was almost $2.7 million. And what were the cuts to some of the discretionary spending, and most of this for us would have been PD, almost $76,000, and service adjustments, which would be the cancellation of special events, which is about $35,000. One of the things that we did when we submitted the report is that if there was an area in the budget that, it was non-COVID savings. So for example, in the fire budget, we have a savings of about $90,000 for the firefighter points that we pay to the volunteers. We felt that that amount should not be offsetting any additional COVID expenses, but it should be going to a reserve at the end of the year. So that's one of the assumptions that we made, that if we had savings that did not pertain to COVID, that the town, which is what our process, what we did last year, is that we would transfer those savings into our reserves as opposed to offset them against the COVID expenses. So I will be bringing a report and to council and to ask for a motion to authorize the treasurer to transfer the non-COVID saving excess of revenue and expenses to the reserves depending on year-end results. And if you recall, we did that last year where we had the surplus and we transferred the surplus to the reserves. So this was one of the assumptions that we made when we submitted the phase 2 funding. So we'll talk about it more at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, but I just wanted to give council a heads up on that. So that report was submitted, and we also had to submit a phase 1 report on the transit. We received $18,334 for transit, and that report was also submitted to the ministry. So now if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you for that report, Ms. Quinlan. And any questions to the treasurer? And now I'll return to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you wish, I'll just wait and do all three. Once Mr. Cribbs is finished, I'll do the three together.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cribbs, you have the floor, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. A number of the points I wanted to make were hit on effectively by the previous speakers, so I won't go over those again. I will tell you that we're starting next week. We're going to be pooling our enforcement data on a regional level, and the region will be submitting it to the province on our behalf so that we can have a better idea of where there are problems around and how we're comparing to the others. So we're going to a regional data pooling model. We hope that has some benefit. The region is making its enforcement team available to its partner municipalities. So we're talking about 2 humans, so that we're clear. The team is 2. But its purpose is to sort of augment our after hours and weekend enforcement capacity. So they are a good and willing partner. They're just limited by their staffing levels as well. The EOC met for about an hour this morning, and we're at this point in time, we don't feel we need to increase from twice a week, but certainly there's a sort of a negative sense in the air, and we're going back. All the messaging from the province is making a number of its inspectors from Ministry of Labor, et cetera, available to some municipalities, and is also sort of repurposing its enforcement staff to really look at COVID related infraction items. So I think everyone's sort of realizing this is the time to sort of change the enforcement approach and to go back to what we were at in April, May, and June. And I think we feel that and see that happening here as well. And the current, the move to orange, the main impact that's having on us municipally is at the MCC. And however, multi-purpose sports facilities and rinks are excluded from the or treated differently as far as numbers calculations go. So parents are allowed in for those under 18, and that will continue to happen. And so that said, there's still a cap on the total number of people in the building. We're still watching that, and that's where we're at this time. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Any questions or comments on the CAO's report from Councillor? I see Councillor Hahn.
Through the mayor, so this question, I guess, could be CAO could answer it, or the Director of Recreation, whichever you prefer. And that is, I received an email recently, actually, from Young Sports Complex in Welland, and it outlined that there, what's happening is they are only allowing parents to drop off kids for whatever activity they're going to participate in, but that there's actually no audience, no participation. They're not allowed in the building. It's kind of, out they go from the car, and their parents can't wait in the parking lot, that kind of thing, and then they can just return back to retrieve the child. Do you see that that going to be taking place anytime soon in Pelham?
Maybe we'll let Vicky answer. From my perspective, yes, I certainly see us, if the trend line we're on, it will end up there. At the moment, we can exercise an exemption. The question is, should we? Really, there is some challenge. We have an enormous building, and it's probably asking a lot to have a 7-year-old try to figure out his or her way to which sheet of ice and handle skates, etc. So for those sort of short interactions, I think it's pretty fair that we have the parent there. If we start seeing ourselves have some numbers problems, my own suggestion would be the provincial rules allow parents for people 18 and under, but I could see us moving to 12 and under in that. I think most 16-year-olds are capable of tying their own skate laces, barring physical or medical disability. So that's something we might look at in the future, but at the moment, the provincial standards apply, and we haven't had an immediate need to diverge from them. Ms. Van Ravensway?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We did meet with area municipalities this morning, and the majority of them are still allowing one parent per child to come into the facility. And actually, I'm not quite sure which facility Councillor Hahn is speaking of. I do know that the Welland arena, the large arena, they do allow parents in, although the small arena, they're unable to allow due to the size in the area that the parents would be in. So basically what it comes down to across the region is, and it has always been this, if you have the space and the ability to house one parent per child, then they do allow it.
Councillor Hahn? Councillor Hahn?
Yeah, just to provide a little bit more information. I'm just looking at the email right now. So it came from Young Sports Complex in Welland, and it just says, with the Niagara region moving into the orange restriction level, there will be no parents, guardians, siblings, family members, or other spectators permitted inside the building at Young Sports Complex effective November 16th and until further notice. Spectators are also not longer permitted at the outdoor field, or congregating in the parking lot is not allowed. And then it goes into, zero tolerance, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
No. Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Recreation. With regards to the courts at the MCC, what does the orange labeling mean to that area?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we looked at okay, so the answer to that question is we have adjusted our attendance in our courts, in our gyms, since last week. Actually, we implemented that we would only have 10 people per gym when it came to pickleball. We were ahead of the game there, and the reason being is that we found that our pickleball program was extremely popular And we had participants on the courts, and we had many participants waiting to rotate on. And we would ask the participants to keep their distance, but it ended up being more of a case. So we changed the way the program is running, and we allow 10 players in at a time, and they reserve their time. And at first, it was a challenge. Although this week, we are finding that their participants are enjoying it more because they actually get more time playing instead of waiting on the sidelines. We're asking the players to register, no different, not register, but reserve a spot, no different than what we do for public skating or on the walking track, and it seems to be working out well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Yes, I see Councillor Olson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Is it intended to flood the ice at the number 3 fire hall this winter, or use that as a rink?
I'll leave that to the chief to answer that.
Chief?
Yeah, just to answer your question through Mr. Mayor, they totally plan on trying to get that going again this year, but we need a little bit colder weather. So but the guys they have it all set up, they're ready to go, and we just have to get the proper weather to support the rink. So, and that's one of the discussions we've been having around is some of the other municipalities are promoting outdoor rinks to try to get people away from the buildings and getting them outside more. So we'll definitely be focusing on getting Station 3 up and running.
Any other questions, Mr. Olson or Councillor Olson?
No, thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Any other questions from council to either the CAO or the Recreation Director? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you through Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Stewart.
Oh, yes. Councillor Stewart has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Councillor
sorry.
Stewart has a question.
Councillor Stewart, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Chief Limburner. I remember in a past meeting there was commentary about parents and their portable fire pits in the parking lot, along with what Councillor Hahn reported about the Welland the young sports complex in Welland, where they're not allowing the parents and people to congregate in the lot. That might be something for us to look at here to keep better control of what goes on in our parking lot.
Yeah, that's a valid point, and it is something. But the unfortunate part of, it is our building. It is it's the town's building. It's the town's parking lot. We really don't have the ability to ban the public from. If the provincial, if we take the parents inside, it says that children under 18 are allowed a parent or a guardian into the building, and in the order, it's clear on that. So we can't challenge people. We can't keep them out. We can sign it. We can tell them we don't really recommend that you come in and out in the parking lot. If people want to hang around out in the parking lot, unless they're doing something unlawful, like consuming beverages and burning the place or whatever, then I don't, other than just loitering, I really don't have the authority to punt people off the property. Maybe the CEO on the legal side can put his spin on that.
Mr. CEO?
Yes, unfortunately, I don't agree with those last words of the chief. But beyond that, council really recently invoked its public code of conduct, which does include both on the physical side trespass orders as the penultimate sanction for poor behavior. So if nothing else, even if that was correct, it is at least for 2 weeks now. It's not been the case.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Stewart?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillor questions or comments? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Okay, we'll try this again. And on a motion by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hahn, be it resolved that Council receive the COVID-19 update presentations from B. Limburner Fire Chief, T. Quinlan Treasurer, and from D. Cribbs, Chief Administrative Officer, for information. The vote is starting with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries, Mr. Mayor. The next item on your agenda is Brock University, Dr. Farron, President and Vice Chancellor, and Dr. Wells, Provost and Vice President Academic, and Ms. Wilford will admit them into the meeting, and I believe that there is a presentation, so she will share. Provost and Vice President Academic, and Ms. Wilford will. Sorry, members of council, that was the live stream just catching up with us there on, on the other screen. So I see that our presenters are now present, if you'd like to proceed.
Yes. Go ahead, ladies and gentlemen. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having us. And I just want to pause to make sure that we're not getting any feedback, and that's perfect. So I'm Gervin Ferron, President of Brock University, and I'm also joined by our Provost and Vice President Academic, Dr. Lynn Wells, and she's here as well. And I'm also joined by our Government and Community Relations Officer, Jane Crawley. And we have a presentation that we would just like to invite to be now loaded as well.
Yes, it's on the screen, Mr. Farron.
Unfortunately, the screen I don't see the presentation, so I may have to switch to see.
I'm seeing my presentation as regional counselor.
I'm also seeing Diana Hewson's slides.
Oh.
What we're seeing in council chamber is the Brock University.
Oh, strange.
Presentation. And on my live stream, I'm also seeing the Brock University presentation.
Madam Clerk, I see reported regional counselor Diana Hewson on mine.
Yep. Same here.
Sorry, and what are you looking at, Mr. Cripps? On Zoom?
Yes. It says reported regional counselor Diana Hewson.
Well, this is most unusual
Yes,
because
I do have the regional report.
President Farron, you're welcome to deliver my report as well if you like.
I'd be so honored, but I suspect my competency would be best aimed at Brock University's presentation. So, Mr. Mayor, if I may pause while we have the presentation loaded, then I can do so.
Yep, of course.
yeah, so we'll just have to figure this out because the live stream and the council chamber is showing the Brock University one. So let's just try this again. And how about now?
There you are.
Perfect. So there we are.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, then I'll start the presentation at this point.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. And with that, one of the major items that we pride ourselves at Brock University on is being a community engaged university. And as part of our presentation here to Town Council, it's recognizing that we can't be an engaged university without ensuring that we move beyond our boundaries to get out to the community and not only engage, but to also talk about some of the developments taking place at the university. So moving to the next slide. I think it's really important that when we think of ourselves as an engaged university, that is really a part of the DNA of the institution. This goes right back to the Allenberg's Women's Institute that in 1957 advocating for the establishment of Brock University. And as we know, Brock University was established in 1964. And over that time, from not only church basement to refrigerator factory, that today when we think of Brock University, we think of a institution that is a key part of the vitality of the entire region. On to the next, please. When I say that, it's also to take a look at the kind of footprint that we have in terms of graduation numbers. We have over 19,000 students at the university. We also have crossed a significant milestone of having more than 100,000 graduates. That's now called Brock University. It's alumni in terms of our relationship with those students who have graduated. And what that means that when I think of that, it's something that I view that everyone, not only at the university, but right across the entire region should celebrate. Our success is your success. And we always want to emphasize that when we have a noteworthy event at Brock University. We hope that you're also celebrating that you're a part of that success that we're having. The other consideration, though, and much like the outline that's been had before, COVID-19 has had a significant impact on the university. We had to pivot from serving our 19,000 students in terms of in-class teaching to primarily online teaching. More than 90% of our classes are now online. That's had an impact, of course, on our budget, on our enrollments, but surprisingly enough, we've had fairly good retention that's cushioned some of that impact. But of course, like yourselves and like organizations right across the province and the country, we've also seen significant impacts on enrollments. We're the second largest employer in the region. We have nearly 6,000 employees, and as a result, as we've adjusted through this time period as it relates to COVID-19, not only have we concerned ourselves with the health and wellness of our students, we've also concerned ourselves with the kind of impact that we would have on the region in terms of our decision-making process. So that's been our decision-making process from having students on campus and what would that mean to the load on the healthcare system, all the way to how we make decisions around our employees. And we've attempted to be good citizens as we've made our choices as well. Next, please. Well, when we think about the economic impact of the university, one of the interesting things is a few years ago we did economic impact analysis and noted that our direct expenditure, its economic impact on the region is over $640 million. And of that, the slice of the pie relating to payroll, and this is not only in terms of salary, wages, and benefits, that slice of the pie was at the time $212 million. And in fact, today it's even larger than that. It's interesting enough that, of course, those individuals, faculty and staff who work at the university also live in Pelham. And you can see nearly $20 million in terms of payroll goes directly into Pelham. And that means that those individuals are participating in terms of town governance, or they're participating in terms of volunteerism. They're also participating in terms of the economic activity taking place in Pelham as well. Next slide, please. So as we think about the academic side of the university, this is an opportunity for me to turn to Dr. Wells to take us through some of the strategic priorities that's a part of the university. So to Dr. Wells, thank you.
Thanks, President Fearon. Good afternoon, everyone. Brock University has a really strong institutional strategic plan that guides all of our work. And as you'll see, there are 4 key priorities. The first, of course, is that we offer a transformational university experience for our students. That involves, of course, excellent teaching, but also very high quality student supports. We also pride ourselves on our research capacity, which has a large impact on the communities that we serve. And our regional engagement, as the President noted, is very much part of the Brock DNA. And finally, Brock is a university that takes very seriously our commitment to foster a culture of inclusivity, accessibility, reconciliation, and decolonization. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of our priority to support our local regions, we have a number of initiatives that we think are really important. One is our Brock Link, which is a specialized area in the institution that supports research, innovation, commercialization, and entrepreneurship in the region. Including to Pelham. And we do a great deal to support startup businesses and small and medium enterprises. We also have the Brock Niagara Validating, Prototyping, and Manufacturing Institute that supports area businesses in the areas such as testing and prototyping and training. Next slide, please. As we noted, community partnerships are extremely important to us. We have a very well-staffed government and community relations office. Jane Crawley, who's with us tonight, is one representative of that office. That area of the university works very hard to build strong community partnerships with various community groups and to really focus on that workforce development. And of course, as we go to the end of COVID into the period of recovery. In order to address the changing labor market needs that will be in place during the recovery period, we're working on the development of new programming, particularly a new program in engineering that we think will have really exciting implications for our regional partners, with lots of experiential learning for our students, lots of placements, lots of research connections with industry, and of course the graduation of highly qualified engineers who can serve our regional communities. In addition, we're really responding to the need for new kinds of delivery through part-time education, upgrading, micro-certificates, upskilling, all of the things that our regional communities need as we respond to the changes in the labor market. We work closely with the Chambers of Commerce to try to understand the needs of local businesses, and we're always tailoring the programming that we're developing at the institution to be responsive to those needs. Next slide, please. Thank you. One of our most proud accomplishment is our institute called the Cool Climate Enology and Viticulture Institute, or COVI for short. This is an amazing institute that works with local wineries and grape growers to provide them with research that really makes their industry very strong. So just as an example, one economic impact study showed that COVI contributed $58 million to the local industry and $91 million to the provincial economy, created over 300 jobs, and really helped to avoid the loss of crop that would occur without the very valuable research that is done by COVI around things such as viruses that affect those plants. Next slide, please. We have a newly minted community engagement strategic plan with a number of aspects that you'll see articulated there on the slide. Through our Government and Community Relations Office, we'll be implementing our community strategic plan over the next few years and really following up to make sure that we're having a measurable impact in the community. And I'll turn back to the President now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One of the key items that I would make mention as you take a look at the slide is that we have a strategy that effectively says that we want the university to be available and to be an asset to community at large. When you move to the next slide, you can see that already we're playing a significant role in a number of areas. And not only that, we're also partnering. For example, if you take a look at the Meridian Community Center in Pelham, we are partnering to ensure that some of the activities in terms of health and wellness that the university is quite well known for moves beyond the university and into the community. You should also know that we've been taking a look at establishing a number of agreements and arrangements with different community organizations and municipalities right across the entire region. For example, just with some of the wind and shore damage, recently we've established a Niagara Adapts initiative, which takes a look at the idea of climate change and the impact of how municipalities can make some adjustment and work with the university to address some of those concerns. As made mention, some of the items that we're doing in terms of health, very much a core stay at the university. And some of the partnerships that we form also benefits the university. So, for example, with Pastones, in terms of mental health services that's provided, it should be known that the university is rated as #1 amongst all comprehensive universities across Canada for the mental health services provided to students. And those are the types of achievements that we can have as a university through partnering. So as a result, there's a significant mutual benefit to the kind of partnering that we can do across communities. Next, please. As was mentioned by our provost, some of the activities that we're also looking at is the opportunity to extend some of our capacities through our entrepreneurial activity and business activity through what we call Brock Link, as well as being able to support local businesses. Now, as I mentioned that, one of the considerations that we did was to make some contributions to PPE, to the local hospital, as well as we use our manufacturing capacity in terms of 3D printing to produce shields that we actually dubbed Badger Shields. What I'd like to make mention on that is as we go through this time period as it relates to COVID, we'd like to be also available to you as a partner in the economic recovery and community recovery. So as you're looking at your capacity to look at the university as part of your capacity as well, to be able to engage in both the economic recovery, community recovery from COVID, but also on some of the broader future considerations. So with that, on our research as well, there are a significant amount of research that's taking place relating to COVID itself. But I would also make mention that we've got other areas that you might want to explore. And if you turn to the next slide, what's to be recognized is that through our government and community relations team, that if there are any curiosity or areas that you'd like to explore with the university, always feel free to contact Jane Crawley, and her email is there. And she'll be a partner to you in being able to look at the opportunities that the university can hold in supporting the community and some of the developments that you might have a store for the future. So with that, I'll thank you very much for the opportunity to present to council. And thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I'll turn to any questions that you may wish as council to ask us as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President Farron, for a great presentation by yourself and your staff. I still remember I'd only been mayor for 1 or 2 months, and you invited me to your office at Brock and said, Marv, What do you think? I think, and of course you did this with all the municipalities, but you said Brock University, we want to reach out to the municipalities in the region, and we want to be relevant to the residents of the region. And I know we had a great conversation. I've been back to Brock with various members of our staff. And when I come out of that building, I'm just filled with so much energy, as are my staff. And I'm sure anybody that talks to you and your staff, they can't help but be overcome with, oh, well, we can do this, we can do that. And your enthusiasm is just off the charts. And I know every time I leave the big Brock Tower, I'm literally dancing in the air. I can't wait to get back to Town Hall and say, wow, this is what Brock wants to do. And, it's great, just the way you guys are trying to get into the community. And I know it's a great thing, and it's really helping the region out a lot. And I just want to thank you and your staff for reaching out like that. Any other counselor that has a comment or questions to the president or his staff members? Well, I guess it must have been a heck of a presentation, Mr. Fern. There are no questions. Again, thank you for coming to Town Council and showing us what's available. I know we got MOU with Brock. We hitched up with Brock on climate change, all the things you mentioned. It's just great to be associated with such a great university. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much, councillors, as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, good night. And I now turn to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive the delegation from Dr. Farron, President and Vice Chancellor, and Dr. Wells, Provost and Vice President Academic of Brock University, for information. Starting with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart. Councillor Stewart? Oh.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that motion carries. And the next presentation is Vanessa Barron and Bobby Kozan with regard to
we'll call the vote.
short-term. Yes?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, this is a motion to remove.
Oh, sorry. We're just getting that echo again. So the next item on the agenda is Vanessa Barron and Bobby Kozan, short-term vacation rentals.
And the vote will start with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Okay. Any further discussion on this order of the capital budget?
What?
Sorry, we've got a technical difficulty here. We've gone back in time.
Madam Deputy, Madam Deputy Clerk, what?
The capital budget goes with parks and.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes.
Maybe the delegate, if the delegate is watching one of our live streaming, I know I had suggested that delegates watch the live streaming to know where they are on the agenda, but perhaps somebody else is just watching us.
Questions and needs of those.
Did the delegates hear that? That you should be watching the live streaming?
No, actually, we don't want them watching the live stream or muting their.
Are you watching, perhaps, Council, an old meeting or was live streaming earlier?
Beautiful. Next page.
For some reason, we're having audio from the budget meeting.
Of the park facilities capital budget.
Where is that coming from?
It deals mostly with capital.
If I could just ask that everybody in the meeting just check their web browser, just to ensure for some reason they're not accidentally also watching something from the Town of Pelham's YouTube channel. That would be appreciated. I am controlling the podium. I will just check the podium as well, which I'm not thinking it is. Madam Clerk, has it stopped?
I believe it has, but I can still hear something faint in the background. But let's give this another try. Madam Deputy, thank you. I just want to clarify with everyone on the Zoom call that you see in front of you 707 Welland Road.
Yes.
Members of council, if you could just give a nod if that's what you're seeing. Thank you. So we can turn the meeting over now to the presenters.
So Vanessa and I'm sorry, and Bobby, you now have the floor.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we renovated 707 Welland Road and turned it into a short-term vacation rental and had it on VRBO. And until recently, we found out that the town has implemented a new bylaw, the 4257-2020, which it has basically shut down our business because of the bylaw. And we're here to present our argument that it was purchased in 2009. The monthly income is basically used to take care of my mother-in-law who's in a long-term care facility. In 2018, we converted it to a short-term vacation rental to basically make the income to carry for my mother-in-law. And we invested about over $75,000 to renovate it. And I'm sure you guys have seen pictures of it on VRBO. And we've had no issues with neighbors, tenants, or any of the other stuff that has been complained about in some of the other short-term rentals within Pelham, the town of Pelham. And we had a meeting, I think about a month and a half ago with Ms. Means and Mr. Mayor, and expressed our concerns, which is why we are here now at the meeting. Thank you for letting us join you guys and express our concerns with this. So, we're basically asking is that, I know you took a poll with some community members and stuff, and people were complaining about the short-term rentals and the problems it was having. Yet we never had any of those situations. We've had families stay and visit. They support local businesses, grocery stores, restaurants, and cafes. We've increased the value of the property for ourselves and our surrounding neighbors. We've also have local residents use them for their extended families, and people are in between houses they're using it for. We're able to maintain the property a lot easier in between stays than you have with long-term rentals. So we have the VRPO number there, 1294314, that shows you all the pictures that we have done. So we're basically asking to be grandfathered into the system without having to pay over $20,000 to try to rezone it, and with the regional plan to be able to lose all that money with still a vote. It comes down to all the councillors to vote on it still. So after investing already $75,000 and then possibly another $20,000 to be just basically our business, our short-term business, to be shut down. So we're basically asking for the councillors, for us. I don't know if you had any other people address this issue. We know there have been some other short-term vacation rentals in our area in Fenwick. We believe that we're probably the only ones that have kind of pushed it this far, and we're basically asked. So the other question is when a new bylaw is passed, you're expecting all the current businesses that have been in place to comply with the new bylaw. So example that I use, being in construction, is when a new building code is implemented, you don't go back and make everybody else change their current structure to comply with the current building code. They're technically grandfathered in. So So why should we have to change since we had our business in place first, a successful business with no issues? Why should we have to suffer now because of a new bylaw that was implemented?
I'm sorry, is that your presentation, Bob?
I believe that is the last slide.
Okay. Thank you for that presentation. Is there any, I see Councillor Olson has his hand up. Go ahead, Councillor. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I visited, I met with Vanessa there on October the 9th at 707 Welland, and correct me if I'm wrong, your sister-in-law is living in one side of or sister-in-law is living in one side of
my sister-in-law, her sister lives in the other side with her family. So
I believe that's significant because one of the features of the bylaws, I understood it, is that there's a responsible person present at the Airbnb at all times, and I think that's significant. I wasn't able to find the bylaw online, and I would question that from the CAO. I wasn't able to locate it to read it myself.
Mr. CAO? Oh, you muted, sir. Mr. CEO, you're muted.
I'm just trying to get to our website to look to see that it isn't there. This was the major piece, this and/or cannabis, of the first 2 years of this council's mandate. There were multiple public meetings, multiple public articles on the topic, public consultation. I appreciate all that was before Councillor Olson's election, but this was years of work in the making to create this product that quite intentionally licenses. That was a conscious decision of council and to achieve a desired effect.
So if we've had our license, we had our VRBO site up for over 2 years. Not once were we ever called upon by any city councils you guys knew we had a business. Not once were we ever called upon to attend any of these meetings. The first time we've heard about this was when we just heard about the new bylaw. So I understand, you might have had meetings about this, we've been to some of the cannabis meetings and whatnot, but we've not once heard about the short-term rentals being an issue.
So Bobby, what are you looking for here tonight specifically from this council?
Well, to technically, is to be grandfathered into the existing system without having to go through the loopholes of the rezoning and the regional replanning and having to have a site plan and all that other stuff to be treated as one of the other Airbnbs, even though we don't have we have a family member that's right beside it. We live 2 minutes around the corner from it on Canberra Road. We're looking now to as well dump more money on the other side to renovate it. I mean, we're not trying to have a property that's disheveled and not taken care of and all that other stuff. We have family members that live on site that take care of it.
Yeah, thank you. I will go back to council again. Any other councilor member questions or comments to the presenter? If not, then perhaps I will call on Director of Planning, Ms. Weens. Any comments you would like to make on this situation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. So this property, as indicated, is a semi-detached dwelling unit with one of the dwelling units occupied by a family member and the other dwelling unit being used as a short-term rental. So as a result of it not being in a single detached dwelling, it is caught and it needs both an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, and the associated fees with that, along with the regional review fees, are what is fairly significant for the applicant in this case. Council will recall when we did seek direction from council with respect to the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. The desire was that these only be allowed in single detached dwellings. And so that was the policy that came forward and that council approved. What is happening here is that this isn't a business that has operated for about 2.5 years. It's one of those ones that we didn't get complaints about, and there hasn't ever appeared to be any issue with. But nevertheless, it is now caught by the new policies and the licensing requirements. And because the licensing is specific to it being in a single detached dwelling, it can't qualify for a license. It needs to go through an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment as well.
The question I have is technically it's not a semi-detached, though, is it, in your paperwork? It's not listed as a semi-detached. Because I believe a couple months ago when Vanessa spoke with somebody in the town that it was officially, what year it was built, it was, I believe it was went in as a semi-detached, but it was never issued as a semi-detached building. Somebody said it was illegal non-conform or illegal conforming or something like that.
I'll return to the Director of Planning. Have you any intake on that part of the argument?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I do not. The structure appears to have been constructed probably either in the late 50s or early 60s. So I don't know about the building permit that may have been issued at that time, but it does certainly present itself as two dwellings as a semi-detached unit or building or structure.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any other comments or Mr. Councilor Wink, do I see your hand there?
Yeah, so being a semi-detached, is there two separate deeds, one for each side?
Oh, it's under one roll number.
No, Mr. Mayor, through you, it's not been separated in terms of a property line. So it's all owned as under one ownership, but it is a dwelling, a semi-detached dwelling. There's two dwellings there.
So it could be determined as a side-by-side duplex.
Right. What determines a semi-detached dwelling?
A semi-detached dwelling is typically described as something that's divided in half on the vertical plane, whereas a duplex is typically divided on the horizontal plane, but it's two dwelling units. They are independent, have independent entrances, and they have their own cooking and living facilities and bedroom facilities and washroom facilities.
So if it's not divided on a vertical plane, what is it then?
I'm sorry, I'll call you Bobby if you don't mind. What was that question?
So if the unit is not divided in a vertical plane, what is it then?
Yes.
The walls upstairs and downstairs are offset. They're not divided in a vertical plane. And it has been like that when we took over the building.
Okay. Any comment on that, Madame Weens?
Well, without knowing or seeing the building, I would still consider that to be a semi-detached dwelling.
Yes. Any other questions or comments from any councillors? I'm trying to think about, other than thanking you for your presentation, Bobby. I don't know if there's I don't know if there's any other, I don't get any questions or comments from the other councillors, so I don't think there's a lot of will on this council to make an exemption. This council.
Can I pose a question to all the councillors and see what their feedback is?
So let me, before I do that, if I may, we did have a lot of Pelham, a lot of public feedback about Airbnbs in the community. We had a lot of residents with eyes on this bylaw as it progressed, and I know that there was full, well, obviously not full support, but a vast majority of the residents supported council in the rules and stipulations that we instructed staff to put into this bylaw. That being said, if you want, I can. What question would you like to see staff asked? And really, I don't know if that's the way to go here.
At this point, given my presentation and a little bit of the background of the property at 707, is what is the take on each of the councillors now? You know, you've invited me to this meeting, which I appreciate, to represent and to give our little quick presentation. So now, based on that, what did the councillors say or have questions directly towards me? Or what are their comments on it?
Well, let me first of all say that unless there is a councillor that wants to make a comment or a statement, the best, the correct protocol here is for staff to either get in contact with you, a letter or phone, and after seeing how council reacted to your presentation, probably inform you as to what your next steps would be from the town perspective. So again, I'll ask Council. Oh, okay, Councillor Hahn, I see you've got a hand up.
Through the mayor. So I guess I would ask the question for the director of planning, seeing as there seems to be a bit of a discrepancy between what the resident is claiming and what you're suggesting, and that there isn't paperwork in front, I guess, of you right now to know if it's a semi-detached or if it isn't. I would ask for that determination to be made. So there must be a process that we can determine that and then move forward.
Ms. Weens?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, we can determine that. I can advise that it's not a single detached dwelling. There are two separate dwelling units there.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for that. And Councillor Olson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you know, I respect the decisions of council, as I must, but it seems like there's an element of unfairness in this whole thing. Basically, the timing and basically the intent of the delegate to obey the rules, and perhaps we should go back and look at the rules and see how they apply here.
Yes, I take that into consideration, Mr. Olson. Any other comments from council? And I believe Mr. Wink, Councilor Wink.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, regardless of whether we call it a semi or a duplex, the policy, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Weens or Mr. Cribbs, is that it has to be owner occupied. So this particular property is not being owner occupied. It's family occupied, and not trying to pick up on your property, Bobby, but we've had numerous complaints in the town of people having family members run an Airbnb and it's not owner occupied, and there hasn't been any control whatsoever. So I think that's part of the reason why the rules have been put in place as such.
So the question I have is, instead of doing a blanket bylaw, the people that had short-term rentals that you guys had issues with or complaints about, why wouldn't have those been dealt with individually then? So if somebody parks on the road, you give them a ticket, right? If they're not abiding by the laws or noise and all that other stuff, you just put a blanket, you know, a new bylaw in place, which eliminates or hurts everybody, the good and the bad.
Well, it could be argued, Bobby, that you give the ticket out based on a bylaw that covers the whole town, right? So, anyway, Bobby, listen, you made your presentation. All I can say, thank you for that. Perhaps staff will have to discuss between themselves. Obviously, there's only so much leeway they have. They have to abide by the bylaws that were put together by council. If there is any leeway from the town's end, I'm sure they will reach out to you and have a discussion with you. But other than that, I'm afraid that's all we can do tonight.
No problem. Thank you for your time and allowing us to present our case, and I guess we'll look forward to hearing from the council.
Okay, thank you again for the time to appear before council.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that council received the presentation by Vanessa Barron and Bobby Kozan regarding their short-term vacation rental in Pelham for information. And if there's no further discussion?
Don't see any, Madam.
Okay, I'll start the vote with Councillor Hahn, please.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
The motion carries. Mr. Mayor, the next presentation is Carol Nagy from Hospice Niagara. Now, I understand that a subsequent presentation was provided to our IT specialist late last week, and I believe Carol maybe wishes to share her screen.
Oh, I'm okay. No, I'm okay. I'm fine. I'll just speak to council.
Oh, okay. We do have your initial letter, but if you wish the presentation?
Nope. No, I'm fine. I'll just go off the initial letter.
Okay, Carol, thank you.
It's been a long night for IT, so I just want to save council on that tonight.
Okay, and then Ms. Nagy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Jenkin. And I also want to thank staff and for all Council of Pelham for hearing my presentation tonight. So I am the Executive Director of Hospice Niagara, and we did forward information through the clerk to everyone, and I'll just briefly speak to that and then allow some questions. So we're at a pivotal point in Niagara right now in our hospice palliative care. And we've come to this point because we have 10 hospice beds in St. Catharines. They've been there for about 12 years now. And for about the last 5 years, we really haven't been able to serve the number of people that are requiring that kind of care. Every year we're turning around at minimum 300, if not 400 people that we just cannot serve through 10 beds. The auditor the provincial auditor did a review of hospice services in 1997, I believe, and recommended that there would be 7 to 10 beds per 100,000 people for hospice care in every municipality. In Niagara, we have 3. So we're far below where we need to be. So the urgency of this certainly came to the Hospice Niagara Board of Directors. And as we started to plan, an exciting opportunity came forward. We have 2 long-term care homes in Niagara, one in Fort Erie, but also one in Welland, that are under redevelopment. So we put together a model where we can build more sustainably and more cost-effectively if we build alongside these 2 homes. We didn't have any land left to build on the St. Catharines site. We looked into all other areas and there was absolutely no land available. Municipalities don't own a lot of land right now, and we couldn't obviously afford to purchase a piece of land. So we've been planning over the last 2.5, 3 years with these long-term care homes, and we were able to speak with the Ministry of Health. They're very excited by this project. One, because it does look and meet all of the provincial expectations by this current government on integration, it does create what the province is looking at is a test of change. So really looking at how can smaller municipalities in the future build alongside these long-term care home developments that are not for profits, so that we can expand hospice care throughout our community. Now, Hospice Niagara also offers a lot of in-home services. In fact, we provide more in-home service than we do in hospice with only 10 beds. And by increasing our hospice presence throughout the community to 3 sites, we will also be expanding this in-home care, as well as the education that we do to many of our doctors and family doctors and nurse practitioners across this whole region. So it really is a win-win proposition for us, for Niagara. What the challenge that we're having, as everybody is, and as you received your report on COVID, that certainly is a financial challenge for everyone. But I'm pleased to say that the province approved this, and despite COVID, has approved the operational funding as these beds open, and we're hoping to start the first opening in 2023, so not very far away. And we're also working and very actively with them to access the provincial grant portion of the $200,000 per bed. So that would be in total for the 20 beds, a $4 million investment by the province. But it really would help in our advocating. It really would also say to kind of the community that we all need to band together to support hospice care. Although we're in healthcare, we're not an organization that is fully funded by the province. If you're aware of our services, you know that we have to raise 60% of our costs annually. So it is I wouldn't say a mountain, but it is a hill for us to climb in this capital campaign. We've already had very generous donations come forward. And so we're hoping to keep that going with a municipal gift. And why now it's so important? When we started planning, we looked at the situation within our local hospitals. So we know that the St. Catharines Hospital does not have end-of-life beds designated, and most people in St. Catharines are having to travel outside of that region for care. We don't know the fate of our south hospitals, Welland, Port Colborne, and Fort Erie. And we're at risk right now of not being able to meet the demand and the increasing demand for our aging population for end-of-life care within the hospital system. Hotel du Shaver has been designated a rehabilitation hospital by the province, and so they will not be getting any licenses for any more increased end-of-life beds. By their estimate, this puts us 17 beds short in the region within the next 5 years. So we're not far off from having a crisis in end-of-life care. And what this means is more people will die in hospital if we don't move on this, which drives up the costs of our hospital care, which puts more pressure on those beds, which we know through a pandemic is not where we need to be. It puts more people at end of life dying in hospital hallways. So that's not what we want. There's no dignity, there's no compassion. And although our hospital staff are wonderful and they try their best, people want to die in their own homes or in hospice care. And we know that to be the case. So I'm asking, as all other municipalities are looking to come to help with this ask, I'm asking for a $4.83 per person based on the 2016 census for Pelham. That kind of a gift for us on a per capita ratio, which is approximately $85,000 spread over a term which Pelham you believe is doable for you. So whether that's 3 or 4 years, again, the builds are looking to be, we're looking to open the first one in 2023, and then the next one shortly after that. It provides the residents of Pelham the opportunity to grow in-home care, which we already provide for many people in Pelham, and really the choice of 2 hospices, one North Welland and the other one then in St. Catharines for the residents. And most importantly, it provides an opportunity to look at how we can expand hospice beds differently in concert with other builds so that we can probably grow more beds across this region, because I am sure that at 30 beds, we will not have enough. So that's my presentation, and that's my ask to council, and I thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions.
Okay. Thank you for the excellent presentation. We all know that we live in a part of the province that is we've got a great percentage of our population is the older section, and we definitely are going to need these beds in the future. Council, any questions, comments for the presenter? Councillor Wink.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for your presentation. Have you chosen the site in North Welland at this point in time? Just curious on where it would be located.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Yes, we have. It is at Foyer Richelieu, which is the north side of Welland, just south of the roundabout. Do you know the roundabout in Welland, or the old Canadian Tire? Maybe I'll say it that way. Yeah. And those sites became available. I met with everybody across the region looking for sites. First of all, it was a problem of land. That there just isn't a lot of land with the region anymore, or with municipalities. We also asked a number of developers, and that didn't lead to any leads. And then it was really the region that stepped up, and this not-for-profit long-term care home that are donating the land. And we will have $1 lease, on this land. So it just became something that we couldn't say no to, because it allowed us to move this project forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Olson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the presentation. I'm thinking about my good friend Doug Rappeljay when you make it. And, your service is very much needed, and really, really applaud the work that's being done, especially the people who are going into homes and helping people at the end of life. It's really important. So that's what I wanted to say to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. And I'll have to say, my good friend Doug Rappeljay introduced me to Foyer Richelieu, Sean Keys, and brought this whole project together. So you knew he had his hand in it.
I knew it.
So I suggest to council that this is obviously a presentation that has come to us as we're discussing the budget in the next whether it be 4 weeks or 6 weeks. So I would think that this will go down as a budget request, and I'm hoping council will put this as a top priority. And any comments, Mr. CAO, as to just how this discussion? This is what we'll have to do: is just discuss it as part of the budget going forward.
I would submit the best path forward tonight is for someone to bring a motion to refer the matter to the operating budget, subject to Ms. Quinlan's disagreeing with me, but it would be an operating item, and then it'll just be considered as part of your budget deliberations. We have a section that's well, you already have the documents before you, but items referred to budget by council, or some variant on those words. So this would simply be added in at this point in time, and you can deal with it through the budget process.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. Ms. Quinlan, any comments on that?
No.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. You were kind of muted at the end.
Oh, I just wanted to say no, that's the right process.
Okay, thank you for that. Ms. Nagy, thank you for your presentation. We will deal with this request and budget time when we discuss our operational part of the budget, and hopefully this council will do what's right for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Okay. Any other, before you go, any other comments or questions from any councillors? Okay, I don't see any. Have a good night, Ms. Nagy.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Madam Clerk?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion presented with the delegation is on a motion by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that Council receive the presentation by Carol Nagy regarding Hospice Niagara expansion for information. If Council is wishing to refer it to budget, I would be looking for an amendment.
Any discussion or questions on that?
Is there a motion to amend?
And is there a councillor? I see Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wink.
So to make an amendment to refer the matter to the operating budget for consideration. Okay, so I will call for the vote on the amendment first, starting with Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
That motion carries the amendment. So now the motion as amended, if there's no further discussion,
Don't see any.
I will start the voting again with Councillor Hildebrand, please.
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion carries. Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is the report of Regional Councillor Hewson. And we do have that presentation available. So our deputy clerk will upload that. And I'm just going to double check with everybody that you're seeing what I'm seeing. Seems to be an odd night.
Can I share my screen? Clerk?
Madam Clerk?
Madam Deputy, is that easier for you?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if the councillor would like to share her screen, she may do so. We do have her presentation just in case, but if she would prefer to share her own screen, she could.
Great, thank you. And Diana, Ms. Hewson, appreciate your patience tonight. You were a little ways down the list. We're looking forward to this report. Thank you.
I'm always the last one on the list. That's okay.
Okay.
Leave the best for last, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, nice to see you, everyone. It's been a little bit, so I'm happy to bring my report forward. So the things I'm planning on reviewing tonight are the COVID financial impact. I'm just going to give an update on that, as well as an outline for our budget timelines. I know some of you are very interested in that, and I always get questions about the budget, so I want to make sure that's covered here. There's also a major project I just wanted to bring attention to, being the South Niagara Falls wastewater treatment plant. There's been changes to the woodland conservation bylaw that I wanted to bring to your attention. Just a brief update on the waste management collection changes, which I'm sure everyone's aware of. And there's been an update in terms of or at least we're anticipating an update in our CEO recruitment selection process, and a decision will be made on Thursday night regarding that. So I wanted to bring that to your attention as well. So just a general overview of the financial impact of COVID. Our gross cost of the emergency was $55.7 million with a net cost of $37.7 million. But staff had made some significant strategic and other mitigations that have allowed us to identify a net estimated deficit of $5.3 million. Across Niagara, they're estimating the gross consolidated costs of being $84.4 million, and which has been netted out at $14 million. So COVID has presented a significant financial challenge right across Niagara, as I'm sure you're aware of and you are experiencing yourself. So in terms of the funding scenarios of that 5.3, their staff are planning to apply for phase 2 funding, and any excess will be available and allocated to the taxpayer relief reserve, utilized to offset further COVID pressures in our upcoming 2021 budget. We continue to anticipate an escalation of costs relating to the pandemic and containment of COVID-19, especially with regards to long-term care homes, the expansion of emergency services, and public health. But with the funds we've received for that safe restart, we're actually planning that we'd be able to cover the deficit and may have some funds to allocate towards further budgetary pressures that COVID's going to throw at us, I think, in 2021. So in terms of a timeline, these are the various dates of our budget meetings. We have already met for our capital budget. It wasn't quite approved yet, so that's going to be carried over into our next budget meeting. There were some outstanding items that some members had concerns over, so we're still waiting to land on a capital budget approval at that point. Since the capital budget was estimated at about $502 million with an emphasis on infrastructure renewal and also supporting growth. So again, it was held over to that November 26th date, and this graph shows a significant aspect of the capital budget being that South Niagara wastewater treatment plant, representing $320 million, and I will speak about that shortly. So our multi-year financing strategy, I just wanted to point out the infrastructure gap. This has been a significant pressure for us in terms of dealing with some gaps in infrastructure investment. In 2021, we are anticipating that some investment will help us reduce that gap, but you can see how it's been growing over year to year with a significant gap being this year noted in that gray section for 2020. So the South Niagara Falls wastewater treatment plant, I mentioned it was a $320 million project. They're looking to try and fund $108 million of that from either federal or provincial funding, which we haven't secured yet. It will be funded through development charges, expected at $148 million, and then $64 million is going to be financed through debt. And although we are committing to the project this year, there is $33 million, which is actually going to be realized in the capital budget. And expansion of this plant will allow for significant growth into areas of St. Catharines, Niagara Falls. It'll alleviate services from Niagara Falls and Port Weller. It'll also help service the new highway, the new hospital in Niagara Falls. And we're also expecting that it will help service and support some development along Highway 20. So when we talk about our growth numbers and Niagara expecting to, grow by, over 200,000 people up until 2051, we can anticipate that 97,000 people will be able to be supported in these areas as a direct result of this plant being developed. So it's a huge project for Niagara. It's going to allow for a lot of growth in terms of housing development and other commercial spaces. And it will also help alleviate pressure on some of our existing wastewater plants. So it's something they're very excited about moving forward and with construction beginning in 2025. So there's also been changes to the woodland conservation bylaw, and I'm going to come back to this. Because I want to land on this with an update that kind of happened this week. So I'm going to just bring up the waste collection changes. As you're all aware, the region shifted its waste collection to every other week for garbage pickup, but maintained the same pickup being a weekly service for organics and recycling. I had very little complaints about this. I hadn't heard it. Nobody has contacted me to date. I'm finding that a lot of people are also using the app, and it's helping them keep track of the dates of what's picked up when. And we are already seeing some positive developments in terms of waste diversion and getting getting items moved away from our landfills and into those recycling bins. So that's, I'm not sure if anyone's heard anything. I'm assuming you'll pass them off to me, but I've heard all good things as a result of that change. And then we are expecting a report to come to council on Thursday, and it will be to advise us on next steps or options in terms of our CAO recruitment process. We have had an acting CAO in effect for the past 2 years. We were intending to move forward on hiring this important position in March, but COVID hit, and that clearly put it on a hiatus until we landed on a somewhat normal operations for the organization. So we'll be determining next steps for this on Thursday in terms of if we want to move forward with the recruiting process or if we want to continue with some type of temporary position. So I'm going to go back to the Woodland Conservation Bylaw. And this is the bylaw that it maintains good forestry practices. Currently, the NPCA administers this bylaw on behalf of the Niagara region. But the region has updated the bylaw because the bylaw did actually delegate authority of the NPCA for those responsibilities, despite it being a regional bylaw. And the region determined that they wanted to take it back in-house. It's important to note that the NPCA does not conduct these services for either Hamilton or Haldimand, so it was something unique they did for Niagara. And Niagara's looking to take this on in terms of responsibility for maintaining the bylaw and forestry practices. So this change will take effect January 31st. It does regulate changes to woodlots and wooded areas of 1 hectare or greater. I wanted to make a point here that for woodlots that are less than 1 hectare, it's actually the responsibility of the town. And I put that Pelham does not have a tree bylaw because that was advice that the regional staff had given us. Some other municipalities do have a tree bylaw, and they've delegated the region the authority to service that bylaw. So I brought it up because I thought it might be something that Pelham wants to consider. There have been some concerns expressed over trees and tree removal in terms of some constituent interactions that I've had. I don't know if you've also had those interactions, so I just wanted to put it in front of you as something that you may want to consider. And then I wanted to land here specifically because there was an update this week in terms of some changes that the province has proposed in terms of conservation authorities. And some of these key changes specifically have to do with, one, remove and or significantly hinder the conservation authority's role in regulating development, permit, and planning application appeal process and engaging in appeal of municipal planning applications. 2, it now will allow for the minister to review and override permit decisions made by conservation authorities and issue permits without watershed data and expertise from the conservation authorities. And 3, it redirects the fiduciary role of the members of the conservation authority for municipally appointed conservation authority board members. So the conservation authority and conservation authorities across Ontario are quite alarmed by these proposed changes. They significantly roll back our responsibilities, and they diminish the powers that the conservation authority has in terms of trying to regulate development in areas that are in floodplains, or the development that's in floodplains or what we consider hazard areas. So the Conservation Authority will most likely be sending correspondence to the municipality, not only the region, but to all of our municipalities in Niagara, asking for support. So I'm just letting you know that something is coming because we really need our municipalities behind us to support the role that the Conservation Authority has in terms of regulating some of our green spaces and protecting areas. But also making sure that we don't have development in the wrong spaces, especially with, you know, the pressures from climate change and flooding that municipalities are now seeing. We need to preserve these types of policies and these roles as opposed to scaling them back. So that is it. I'm certainly happy to table any questions. Actually, I will mention one more thing. I was aware of the letter that was sent regarding support for the cannabis position. We've actually scheduled a meeting with some of the planning staff to review what the ask is for Pelham and how the region can support that. So I'm looking forward to getting an answer and hopefully providing some clarity for everyone next week. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Houston, for that detailed report. It was nice to have that. Before I open it up to council, I will say that it's kind of nice now that the new providers have taken over the waste contract that we don't have nightly emails telling us what routes didn't get picked up and are going to have to be picked up the next day. The two providers all have brand new trucks and are getting the job done. So that's excellent to see. Okay, any questions or comments? I see Councillor Olson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Councillor Houston. High-speed internet is very important to people in Ward 1 in terms of the businesses that they're operating and the change in the way business is done. And I'm also thinking of virtual learning for the students. I wonder if you could give us an update on where the SWIFT program is directing and what the timeline is for that. I want to make sure that we're in line for the funding that was announced by the federal government in the past week.
So the funding that was in the budget allocated an additional $150 million to double the province's commitment to improving connectivity. I believe it's connected to that ICON program, which is something that the municipality would have to apply for. I believe the last time we checked that Pelham had not applied for that funding, but I will turn it over to staff who may know more about that.
Ms. Quinlan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are currently looking at that funding. The next request that's due is early January, so there hasn't been an official date for it. It's one of the items that the senior team is looking at to see the eligibility and what we need to do. So we are investigating that, and we will bring something back to council to give you an update.
So I can also add that the SWIFT program did have some RFPs out. They have not been decided upon yet. We're still waiting an answer for that. But it would also, I'm not sure if it's possible, but it would also be helpful to understand what areas of the town is dealing with connectivity issues. I'm not sure if that's something that the town has access to.
It isn't something the town has direct access to. SWIFT, in fact, has a fairly good idea. It's they require the bidders to indicate roughly where they have. That's fairly confidential information because it goes to the heart of their business model.
Okay.
That's not information that the corporation, the town of Pelham, is privy to.
It would be nice to know in terms of understanding how broad a problem it is for our residents, but I know, the region has made investment in the program. We have regional representation on the SWIFT committee. The last update I got, which was this week based on your prompting, Councillor Olson was that they're still working on it and haven't awarded those RFPs yet. So we're still waiting to hear more information.
Okay. Any other questions for the councillor? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Houston. Thank you for your report. And I'm sure you know where I'm going with my question because we've been emailing back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
As a councillor, we had approved a transit budget based on a fixed amount. And I've been hearing rumors from the region that that transit number may not be an accurate fixed number. Two reasons: the Niagara on the Lake expansion and the financial governance model that the region is talking about, which talks about establishing a single transit commission. And that also will change the amount that we're going to be committed to because the region is going to impose that on us. Do you have any comment to both those questions?
Yes, the Niagara on the Lake expansion, my understanding is that is actually funded by Niagara on the Lake, so I don't expect that expansion to cost anything additional, but I do understand they are re-examining the funding model. I don't actually sit on the Public Works Committee. I don't know if Mayor Duncan sits on that committee, but I believe it's coming to council this Thursday and we'll have an opportunity to speak to it further, but I can certainly ask more questions and get more information for you. I just don't have the answers tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be very helpful because, like I said, we approved a certain amount based on the information we have with a fixed budget, and that's what as a councilor, the budget pressures we are under coming up are considerable, to say the least.
I imagine every municipality across Niagara is under budgetary pressure this year with COVID, but I think we have to really rethink transit because if it looks anything like it did this year, there won't be the ridership to support the type of system that we had a year ago. And I certainly think that the on-demand transit model has been very successful, and maybe there's an opportunity to expand more in that direction.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions for the councillor? Not. Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For you to Councillor Houston, I was wondering if there's been anything done since the article about the biosolids contract being awarded. Can you give us any information as to whether that's going to be considered?
There's currently an investigation into the biosolids contract, so at least from my position, I'm waiting to hear the outcome of that investigation before I believe we'll be making any decisions at council. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. I mean, I know the contract was awarded. There was some concern over how it was awarded. The investigation was launched, and we're waiting to hear the outcome.
Okay, thank you. Transparency is the best policy.
Absolutely. And I even, as a result of that, I even attended the procurement meeting today and asked that when we're making decisions in terms of awarding contracts based on a scoring matrix, that actually gets included in the report that we get, as well as a clear identification of who the unsuccessful bidders were, so that we have a very clear, publicly transparent process in terms of why we've come to the decisions that we've come to. So there may be some changes to our procurement policy as a result of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any councillors? Not seeing any, Ms. Houston. Thank you again for a fine report.
Thank you.
I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the November 16th, 2020 report of Regional Councillor Houston be received for information. Hearing no further questions, I'll call the vote, starting with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
And Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
That motion carries. Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is the adoption of minutes, moved by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. SC 15, Special Council Minutes of November 2nd, and C 18, Regular Council Minutes of November 2nd.
Okay. On that agenda item, is there any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, I return to the clerk.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries. Mr. Mayor, I did not have any business arising from council minutes. Are there any issues or items that members of council wish to lift for separate consideration, being that they would like to propose an amendment to one of the resolutions proposed on the consent agenda?
Does any councillor wish to lift a consent agenda item? And I see Councillor Stewart. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under 8.3.1, the tax write-offs, I just have a comment I want to make on that. So should I lift it or just comment when we get to that one?
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, unless there's a change to the recommendation, a comment is invited when we get to the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other items council wants to bring up on the consent agenda? Councillor Olson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure of the procedure here. What exactly is happening? Because there are items on the listed on the agenda that I'd like to speak about.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, on the consent agenda, the reports are listed for information. There are a number of items listed for information. Members of council are invited to speak on any one of the items. If council wishes to make an amendment to any of the recommendations put forward, that item would need to be lifted for separate consideration. Does that help?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure it does, but 8.3.2 I would like to talk about.
And did you wish to change the recommendation that's to receive it for information, or just speak to it?
Speak to it.
Okay, then it can stay on the consent agenda then.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Hildebrand had his hand up.
Councillor Hildebrand?
No, I'm only speaking to item 8.3.5. I don't need to lift the item.
Okay. Again, if you just want to comment on the on any of the consent agendas, you don't have to lift it, as the clerk has explained, only if you want to change the recommendation. Okay, thank you. Anyone have any they want to lift? Not seen any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the November 16th, 2020 council agenda be received and recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. Firstly, there is a tax write-off under the Municipal Act, Section 357 and 358, to approve $857.12. Then there is a Marcom Individual Achievement Platinum Award. There is an information report with regard to the comprehensive zoning bylaw review public consultation. An information report with regard to Pelham Street North speed study results, the September 2020 financial reports, and then information correspondence item from the Minister of Municipal Affairs to be received for information with regard to a place to grow growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. And then there are committee minutes from the Cannabis Control Committee and the Committee of Adjustment and the Pelham Finance and Audit Committee. Turning it over to you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion by members of council on any of the items.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. And I know that Councillor Stewart wanted to comment on 8.3.1. Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. My comment is that, these come up a few times a year when there's a write-off for various reasons, and I have no issue with that. But the opposite of that is that throughout the year, we get information through MPAC of supplementary, like for new houses that have been assessed, if somebody builds a garage. So I think it would be of value to council to have those numbers as well, the amount of new assessment and the corresponding amount of tax dollars that would be received in the current year for those things.
Perhaps the planner would like to address that, Ms. Weens?
Actually, the treasurer has her hand
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry. Oh, treasurer, wrong person. Ms. Quinlan?
That's okay. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So with regards to these write-offs, they're called Section 357, 358 of the Municipal Act. So we have to bring these to council to get approved. So we're mandated to do that. With regards to the supplementals, we provide that information in our monthly reports to council. So if you're looking at the September 30th report, you'll see that the supplemental revenue at that time was $169,000. So I don't know, did you just want a summary of what the additional assessment is? Because the revenue is being shown separately here under note number 2 of the supplementals. So we do break it out and we do tell council in our monthly reports the total amount.
Ms. Stewart, Councillor Stewart?
Yeah, thank you for that. I just saw it here on the report. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any other question on 8.31? Not seeing any. We'll go to 8.3.2, and I believe Councillor Olson wanted to comment on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I wanted to make a comment about the significance of this award. First of all, if I had my way, every strategic plan would have an element of peer review and by a reputable group. And I look at this as an award of strategic significance. So I wanted to acknowledge and appreciate Mark's efforts and contribution and congratulate him on this individual nomination. As a council, I think we've taken on a lot of responsibility for the careers of the people that work for us, and this is proof positive that our efforts and individuals' efforts are working for the value of the entire town. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Olson, or Councillor Olson, and I agree 100% with you. The number of awards that our staff have got this year from this Markham agency, it speaks well to the quality of work that the staff members are doing for our council and for the residents of this town. And Mark especially has done a yeoman service on redoing our website. Again, he won an award on that. So yes, I think the town's very fortunate to have Mark as our communications expert. He takes that job very seriously, and he takes a lot of pride into turning out a real good product. Thanks for bringing that up, Councillor Olson. Next, I believe, Councillor Hildebrand, 8.3.5, I believe. Go ahead, sir.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. To the Corporate Services Report for September, FAC 0420 deals with the Tice Road Operations Center. I believe this is the third quarterly report, reporting zero progress. I went by the Tice Road Operations Center and noticed the electrical stack on the trailer still hanging the same way as it's always been, with the wires coming out of it. So obviously, from an outsider's point of view, no progress has been made. Would the Public Works Director please advise me with the status of hooking up the trailer that was sent there to amalgamate all our staff in one place?
Councillor Marr? Oh, I'm sorry. Director Moore. Sorry.
You got a promotion.
Yeah.
Is that what you call it?
That's not self-evident.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to answer the councilor's question, we are awaiting Hydro to bring in a new transformer so that we can bring a new service into the building. That will help feed the trailer from that panel once that new service is installed. And from what my understanding is that we're working with Hydro to get them to get that service into us. We have done some modifications to Tice Road in terms of some new office spaces to accommodate those some of those people that work there in a safe environment for now. But that's the status. We're waiting for Hydro to get that service into the property.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Two more questions. Since you've created more space at Tice Road, does that mean you can amalgamate the staff there now without that trailer being hooked up?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the plan was and is to move our supervisory staff into the trailer once we have the power service to that trailer. That will allow us to put an additional office space where the supervisors currently are located to house our maintenance manager, as well as provide some additional office space for myself to work out of that facility 1 to 2 days a week, and also will provide an additional office space for our admin staff that work out of that office periodically.
Councillor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Public Works Director, have you got a date when the transformer is coming in? Because I talked to a local electrical contractor who has the ESA qualifications, and I can't believe how long this has taken. Because if that was a lot and the builder was building there, we'd have the house built, power on, the people moved in. And we spent almost a year now, and we seemingly don't even have a transformer if that's what it needs.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that I can come back with a more detailed report on what the status of that project is and prepare that to council.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Director. Excellent. Who else? And I believe that was the last of the consent agenda items. And unless I see Councillor Olson, go ahead, sir.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, 8.3.4 is the speed study. And reading the speed study and visiting the site, I can imagine there's some urgency to this matter. I see people that are driving 100 kilometers an hour through a 50 kilometer an hour zone. And there's a lot of people driving in excessive speed. And we have a petition from the residents, which seems to make a lot of sense, but these speeds that I see on this chart are not survivable by people and pets and probably people in vehicles. So I wonder what the next process is, or next part of the process is for this item.
Director of Public Works?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to answer the councillor's question. We did complete a speed study, and it's completed over a 24-hour period. The average speed was in between 50 and 60 kilometers an hour. Obviously, with the counts, it does pick up ranges of speeds for those traveling vehicles, and some of those vehicles were in excess of 100 kilometers an hour. A limited number, but there was a couple vehicles that were registered. So the next phase, the next step is in our traffic calming policy and process is to now do an evaluation based on the engineering data that we received, doing an evaluation on that section of road with respect to the ability to move forward with traffic calming measures. So that point assessment has not been completed yet by staff. We're in the process of doing that. Once we have completed that, if it does meet the requirements for traffic calming, then we'll move into looking at opportunities for passive measures that may help to reduce speeds, conduct some additional data collection based on those measures, and failing those measures are adequate to reduce the issues. Then we move forward into more of a permanent measure, which would be some design options for traffic calming, and that would involve some public consultation process as well.
Councillor?
I have to tell you, I'm astonished at these speeds, and in combination with distractions, this is a disaster just waiting to happen. So, thank you.
If I could ask the director on one question on that. Do you do the study over, was it a 24-hour period? Do you, is that how we usually do that, is just 124? I'm wondering if maybe one during the week and one during the weekend, but do you find that the one study is adequate usually?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's industry standard. Doesn't mean that you can't do more data collection, and we're open to do that as well, so that we can get a good handle on what's happening there.
Okay, thank you. And like you said, it is important to realize that the vast majority of the drivers were between, what I believe, 50 and 60, and I know it doesn't help if you get hit by somebody doing 100 that the average is 50 or 60, but obviously there has to be more study done. But it is, I thought it was interesting to note the number of people that are indeed following the speed limit in that design or on that street. That's just what I thought. Anyway. Anybody else want to make comments on any consent agenda items? Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the treasurer. Is this the time to ask questions about the financial statements?
Well, right now, besides the September ones?
I'm looking at the forecasted year-end results.
No, that's going to the Finance and Audit Committee.
Okay.
It's not on this agenda.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So on the consent agenda, the vote will start with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand. Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart. Oh, Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously. Okay.
Minutes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is the report from Councillor Olson with regard to the Niagara Federation Agriculture Annual Regional Meeting.
Yes. Councillor Olson, you have the floor.
Our deputy clerk is just sharing the screen with his report.
There you go.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The other evening, I had the opportunity and the privilege of attending the annual meeting of the Niagara Federation of Agriculture, and the Niagara Federation of Agriculture represents 1,400 family members in the region of Niagara, and they're part of an organization called the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, which has 38,000 family members. And Niagara region is the most diverse food production area in Canada. And I heard some amazing statistics. We heard some from Brock University. Well, the farm receipts, gross farm receipts in Niagara region are $838 million a year. And the impact is 20,000 jobs in the Niagara region. And a lot of them come from come from in the town of Pelham. And from a Pelham perspective, there were several items in there, and one of them was the requirement for broadband, Bill 156, which is the treatment of animals. And I can say that from my experience, when we visited somebody, we would always, we'd have dinner and then we had to go to the barn, because everybody seemed to be much more attached to the soil and the animals. And I don't think you could possibly be a farmer and not love the soil and the animals. They're faced with several challenges in the future. There, of course, the COVID, and there's 95% of farmers expect that their negative financial impact from the virus. One of the other items that was on the reports was Farm 911, the Emily project, and Pelham was a leader in that. And if possible, I'd like to invite Chief Limburner to make some comments on this, because we were a leader in this through our fire services.
Chief, are you there?
Yep, I am, Mayor.
Okay. Have any comments on that program?
Through Mr. Mayor. Well, we started working on this a few years back at the Emily project, as some of you might know. It came out of the western part of our province, where they had an unfortunate farm accident, and the emergency services were unable to locate the scene and the patient. As a result, the delayed response contributed to the unfortunate passing of that patient. So the family members, local farmers out that way got together, and they named the project after the young girl, Emily. And what it does is, as you know, in the rural areas of Pelham or around, we have 911 signs, which people have at the foots of their driveways. So when we respond as first responders, it'll say, 100 Main Street. Then we go down the road and we see these signs. Well, the unfortunate part is you have to have a structure or a building on a piece of property in order to get one of those signs. You can't sign or assign a number to a vacant piece of property. So through I went to a number of the OFA meetings, and we adopted this. The council approved it, and the town adopted the program. And what we did was we've come up with a sign project. The sign is different colors, yellow and black instead of the regular one. And through the planning department, we assign a number, and these signs are installed by the town. We order them in, and the farmers pay for them. They pay for the whole thing. And to date, we have about 10 of them in Pelham. The need for them in Pelham isn't quite as much as out in the larger farming communities. In Pelham, we only have a small number of farms that are over 100 acres. The majority of our farms are under, so they're within concessions, and we really don't have a big problem finding addresses when we respond. We do, but not as big as, say, some of the bigger farming communities where their farms cover multiple concessions. So anyways, I think it's a great project, and I think it will improve. Anything to improve responses to emergency scenes is greatly needed.
Thank you, Chief. Back to you, Mr. Councilor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Sorry to put you on the spot. I wanted to make sure we highlighted that because it was highlighted in the meeting. There's many examples of the farmers giving back, including scholarships and business planning for coming out of the COVID. But as I said before, 95% of farmers expect that COVID will have a negative financial impact on their businesses. But I can assure you that from listening to the leadership and the membership at the meeting, that the farmers will be prepared for when we come out of the economic downturn that's sure to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Olson, for your report. Is there any questions, comments by any of the councillors? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that Council receive Councillor Olson's report regarding the Niagara Federation of Agriculture Annual Regional Meeting for information. Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries. Mr. Mayor, the next item on your agenda is the update from the committees that Councillor Stewart represents us on.
Okay, Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. At a prior meeting, we had a short discussion about the possibility of getting more fulsome minutes from the library board. So at the last meeting, I asked if we could have more detailed minutes, and I was told that package and that they were more transparent than the majority of public libraries. And they pointed out that one of the differences between committees and the library board is authority. Committees are advisory committees to council and have no legal responsibilities, whereas the library board, and they do need to be very descriptive in their minutes. The library board is a governing board and is formed to keep the library on mission, and they hold responsibility. But that being said, they suggested that they could do more to inform town council about what the library is doing and possibly coming in quarterly or twice annually to visit the council with updates.
Great initiative, Councillor Stewart. You're absolutely right. I believe every member on this council would like to be more informed about the business of our library, both financially and service-wise. Thanks for bringing that to their attention. Great. Any council, or is that Councillor Olson? Is that your hand up, or are you just resting it? I think. Sorry, I think you're just resting your hand.
No, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I fully support this and congratulate Councillor Stewart on this initiative, because I would love to hear what's happening in everywhere we're spending money. I'd love to know about it.
Okay. Thank you for that comment, Mr. Olson, Councillor Olson. Any other comments from any other councillors? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council receive Councillor Stewart's report regarding committees, most specifically the Library Board, for information. And the vote will start with Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
And Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries. Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is staff reports requiring action. The first report, the assumption of Rosewood Estates. Moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved the Council receive report 2020-0164, assumption of Rosewood Estates, and recommend the Council assume the municipal services in Rosewood Estates subdivision and open the streets within the subdivision as public highways by bylaw in accordance with the subdivision agreement. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Yeah, okay. On this item, any questions or comments on the assumption of Rosewood? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to make a comment. I did some research into this subdivision, like many other subdivisions we've had in the past, and what I see is what I determined is a conflict, in that the planner, the engineer, and the inspector came from the same company. I'm going to be commenting on that later in my notice of motion, because that's one of the things I think as council.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Any other comments from Councillor? Councillor Olson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director. I was wondering about this maintenance period. What is it? It seems to be like quite an extensive period of time, 5 years at least. Are you aware of any deficiencies that have arisen during the maintenance period with the subdivision?
Mr. Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with respect to specific deficiencies, I don't have those readily available to speak on tonight. I do know that there were some trees, boulevard trees, that were replanted following the maintenance inspection. So the normal course of action is once the works are completed and the subdivision is filled out and built out, then engineering staff along with the developer and the engineer will walk the site and record any deficiencies, and then once those deficiencies are completed, then the recommendation comes forward to council for assumption.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hahn.
Through the mayor to Director of Public Works. My understanding was that there's also a process whereby the underground infrastructure is scoped. So they, basically camera goes down, and then also too, there's cleaning that's done. So the, stormwater, all that kind of thing, the grates are all cleaned, everything's ready to go. And then we assume it. Has that all been done?
Through you, Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I can't speak specifically on what was cameraed as part of the process. I do know usually it's the sanitary sewer systems that are inspected via CCTV prior to assumption to make sure that the connections are good and tight and operating properly. But I can assure you that yes, actually a part of the assumption process as well as we assume or accept primary services. So once those pieces of infrastructure are put in place prior to even the assumption of the final subdivision, those pieces of infrastructure, including are inspected and approved prior to the final assumption of the subdivision. So it would have been checked several times, at least twice.
Councillor Hahn?
So I'm comfortable with that. So long as we know that it's been done before we assume it, then I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seen any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. And this vote starts with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion carries. The next staff report on the agenda is item 10.2.2. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2020-0160 proposing an extension of the provision for electronic meetings of Council and committees, and that the proposed amendments to the Town of Pelham Procedure Bylaw as outlined in Appendix 1 be approved, thereby facilitating electronic meeting participation until the end of August 2021 for Council, Special Council, Committee of Adjustment, Committees of Council, and Advisory Committees, and that staff be directed to present the necessary bylaw to the next regular meeting of Council December 7th, 2020. And this is moved by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Hahn. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, any discussion on this item in the agenda? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. One of the items in the discussion paper that we were given noted that per Bill 197, proxy voting is a permitted way of voting on council agendas. I know from my recent experience, I would have loved to have proxy voted because I spent a lot of time preparing, and then unfortunately a circumstance came up where I couldn't attend. So I would like to amend the report to include a proxy voting be allowed and not come back to council by December the 7th.
And I'll ask the Madam Clerk to comment on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is detailed or outlined in the report The proxy voting is very new through Bill 197, and it's not just a matter of adding it to the procedural bylaw. The clerk is required, mandated under the Municipal Act, to develop policies and procedures with regard to how proxy voting will be achieved by the council. So to bring that back for December 7th would certainly be challenging in terms of staff resources, and also based on the approved strategic plan priorities, some of the outcomes in the or initiatives in the clerk's department would have to be put on hold so that the proper research and policies could be developed in this case. However, it is, of course, council's decision. Unless the CAO has anything further to add, that would be my response.
Mr. CAO?
I understand and basically agree with where Councillor Hildebrandt's coming from. This proxy, it's a new thing, but it would be useful. However, as our report sets out, we'd like to bring this back to you somewhere in the end of, somewhere in Q1 next year. This falls under sort of changes to the procedural bylaw, which you, not 2 months ago, ranked as a priority between 10 and 15. We have set our work accordingly. I actually fear the clerk is so polite that it causes us problems sometimes. When she says December 7th would be difficult, I don't think it's at all possible. There's actually that's going to require a lot of back-end work on our part to sort of get the policy. There's a bunch of work behind that we have to go through, which we've never done before. It's new, not a traditional municipal norm at all. So if it pleases council, we've undertaken that we're going to get it to you in the first quarter next year. It's not a top 10 priority. You yourselves told us it was not a top 10 priority. We are working on it. We need some time. We have weekly SLT meetings, and at those, we look and we're scheduling our work ahead. We're looking down the field to see what needs to be done now to to meet our deadlines. And we've been very successful with that, if I do say so myself. This would really throw a monkey wrench in us trying to hit the deadlines we've sort of agreed to on various items for the next 6 to 8 weeks, keeping in mind that there's the winter holiday in that time period, which sort of shuts us down for a better part of 2 weeks. So if it's the will of council that this is critical and happen now, we will of course respect your wishes. But if Q1 is good enough, we do have a schedule and plan that we sort of created. We created the plan together, and then staff make a schedule out of that. And there's a reason why we suggested Q1.
Thank you for that, Mr. CAO. Councillor Hildebrand?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I understand we established a plan, but like the provincial government and all other governments, the plans change based on what we're given. And I think proxy voting, with the number of council meetings we've been scheduled in the next little while, it would become a very useful tool for all of us as councillors. So to me, it becomes a high priority item.
Well, if I could comment on this, the fact that someone can vote without being in a council chamber, I find that wild. I think that anybody who votes on something should be in the council chamber so they can be accountable for it. And because this is such a big step, I certainly don't want staff to bring something to council that hasn't been researched and complies with the act and all these other steps. To think that we can bring this forward, 2 weeks, Councillor, no offense, but I think you're being unreasonable considering, number one, where it is fitted, where we put it on the 10th or 15th position, and then to bring it up and expect staff to do this in 2 weeks. Myself, I think it's such a big item. And I think it's going to take a lot of research, and I can understand the CAO's wishes not to rush this this amendment or whatever it's going to be. That's my feeling anyway. Any other counselor have any subject on this or any feelings? No, I don't see any. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Hahn is.
I'm sorry?
Councillor Hahn has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Hahn. Go ahead.
Through the mayor. So I guess what I'd like to add to that is it'd be 3 weeks, number one. Number two, we've just learned about this. The provincial government through Bill 197 has passed the bill. So they believe that this is a proper protocol and it's something that council can do. And I think that considering there could be reasons, whether it's health reasons, medical reasons, whether it's a funeral, whether it's a number of reasons that you can't attend a meeting, but you've done a lot of pre-work, a lot of research, and you want to have the opportunity to have a proxy vote. Again, the provincial government seems to think it's okay. That's why they passed the bill. So I would very much be in favor of asking the clerk to do this within the 3-week time frame and present this back to us on the 7th, please.
Well, we'll agree to disagree on that. I just think it's wild that someone cannot be in the council chambers for whatever reason, but can still send someone in to do the voting. That just seems wild. Whatever. Any other comments? Councillor Wink.
So I'm going to echo the mayor's comments and state that we can't be rushing stuff through. I think we've never had proxy voting before, and we've been able to operate fine, thank you very much, without it. Giving staff the option of bringing it back to us in Q1, which isn't a long time from now, is reasonable. And for us to ask staff to have a fulsome report within, whether it's 2 or 3 weeks, is not being reasonable.
Councillor Olson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm persuaded we should wait at least until the first quarter.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. It is a new thing, but then again, in this year, we've experienced a lot of new things. And I think proxy voting is a very important thing that should be addressed as soon as possible. You know, when you look at what happened with Councillor Hildebrand losing his mother, and, you know, it's not a matter of sending a person into the room to put his vote in for him. It's a matter of Councillor Hildebrand able to forward his vote to the clerk. And I think it's a very important initiative that needs to be done sooner rather than later.
We seem to be split. I guess we can call the vote. Madam Clerk, is that a correct step on this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I actually need a seconder.
Okay. Is there a seconder on this?
Councillor Hahn?
Oh, Councillor Hahn, is that your hand? Yes, okay.
So the motion is that staff be also directed to prepare the bylaw to include proxy voting for December 7th. And that would include all of the policies and procedures that go along with that, because that's required by the Municipal Act. So.
Okay. Any further discussion on this motion put before us? Not. Councillor Hildebrand?
Yeah, realizing that all the policies and procedures have to be attached to it, maybe the date can be moved to I'm not sure what date in January or somewhere in there, to give additional time to the clerk's department to produce all that data.
But we do have the motion before us. And I'm sorry, I forget whose motion, who brought the motion? Was that you, Councillor?
Councillor Hildebrand, yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So are you withdrawing the motion? And Madam Clerk, is that possible?
The motion could be amended to change the date.
Okay. Is that what you want to do, Councillor? Amend the motion?
I'll amend it to change the date.
Okay, thank you. And to what date, sir?
Can the clerk provide me with dates in January?
There is one meeting scheduled for January on the regular council schedule, and that is on January 11th.
And the next date?
February 1st.
I'll amend the date to be February the 1st.
And Councillor Hahn, do you wish to second that? That's a yes? Thank you. February 1st. So we'll vote on the amendment first, being the change of date to February 1st. And so I will call for the vote on that. Sorry, I'm just keeping track of all of this. So the motion is to change the date.
There's excuse me, there's a question for Councillor Olson.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO and the clerk, does that give you enough time to complete your work?
It's certain in Q1, so that's much more doable. We were trying to be vague because there is only one meeting in January right now, and to my mind, council is essentially going to have no choice but to call a special meeting of council to address the operating budget sometime in the month of January. Not knowing exactly when we're going to find out about the phase 2 funding, which is the material item we're waiting for. But that one meeting in January, it's going to be very easy to fill that up because most months you have sort of 2 meetings. And so that's part of the reason we were sort of vague on the Q1 thing, because there are any number of things that could pop up and might need to punt that. It being of moderate to medium importance in our minds, although I think we're hearing from half of you that it's maybe more than that. February 1st is probably doable. I'm certain 14th is. If it just said the month of February, we'd have exactly split the difference on the current instruction versus the motion, and I'm sure we could make that.
Councillor Hildebrand?
I'll agree, splitting the difference.
Okay, thank you. So that's February 14th, is the Madam Clerk?
Maybe it's 15th.
I believe it's the 15th through you, but if I just put February, then if it gets here the 1st, I will get a gold star.
February 16th. It's a Tuesday because of the holiday Monday.
That's correct. It'd be the 16th.
Okay.
So the motion is to amend the initial motion to ensure that the report is back to council in February of 2021. So if there's no further discussion on that date, I will start the vote with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
No.
Okay, and the next, that motion carries. The next motion is giving the direction altogether, so directing the, and then we have to go back one more to the original motion as amended. So this is directing the clerk to bring back the procedural bylaw with regard to proxy voting together with the policies and procedures by February of 2021. So I will call the vote on that if there is no further discussion.
Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. And that voting will start with, again, Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
And Councillor Mayor Junkin.
No.
Thank you. Now, members of council, we will go back to the original motion as amended, but the procedural bylaw to allow for virtual meetings would still come back to council on December 7th. It's just the second component would be coming back in February. I just want to make sure the council is clear on that. Okay, so I'll call the vote on this motion as amended. Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion is carried unanimously as amended. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is the presentation and consideration of bylaws. I did not have any unfinished or new business listed on the agenda. Moved by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. Bylaw 4289 being a bylaw to appoint an engineer to update the mapping and assessment schedules for the Big Creek Municipal Drain. Bylaw 4290 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 4068 of 2019, confirming various appointments to boards, commissions, and committees of the Town of Pelham, and to remove and appoint members to the Committee of Adjustment, Property Standards Committee, to remove members from the Pelham Active Transportation Committee, remove and appoint members to the Pelham Seniors Advisory Committee, and to remove members from the appointed fence viewers, and to remove and appoint members to the Pelham Summerfest Committee, and to remove and appoint members to the Pelham Art Committee, and to appoint a council representative to the Finance and Audit Committee. And the various schedules are listed therein. And bylaw 4291 being a bylaw to dedicate lands as a public highway. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion or amendment.
Okay. Any discussion, comments on any of these bylaws? Councillor Hildebrand.
The second item, or third item, bylaw 4291. We're receiving a report to receive the public highway called BRADEN Way. Where is BRADEN Way?
Director.
Braden Way.
Oh.
Braden Way, Madam Director of Planning, I believe, would have that information.
Yep. Okay.
Yes,
Ms.
Mr. Mayor, through you, Braden Way is off of Homestead. It's in the kind of south end of Fonthill.
I understand that, but isn't the spelling BRAYDEN for that road?
Pardon me,
BRAYDEN, not BRADEN. So that's a different road.
I will have to check the plan. One moment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the Director of Planning will check the plan on that. That is an administrative correction, so if it's required to be corrected, we will certainly make that before the bylaw is under corporate seal.
So then what exactly are we accepting in that bylaw? Can someone explain that to me, please? Mr. Mayor?
So Public Works or CAO?
Director of Planning, I believe.
Or perhaps the Director of Planning.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, this was an extension of Braden Way that happened probably 6 or 7 years ago. And it was done by reference plan and has never been declared as a public highway. So this came up as a result of a homeowner doing a title search on their property and discovering that the road hadn't ever been declared a public highway. So it's just really cleaning up something that should have been done 6 or 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Weens. Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Hahn?
Through the mayor to the Director of Planning. So further to that, this then is completely different than an assumption like we were talking about with Rosewood. So we don't have to worry about any deficiencies with this portion of road, potholes, paving of any sort, or any infrastructure issues because it's not the same as assumption, or it is.
Mr. Mayor, through you, no, it's not the same as assumption.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the bylaws about to be passed? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Oh, yeah, Councillor Stewart.
Oh, Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, about the committee members, adding and removing them. I'm asking for an amendment for Schedule Q, the Finance and Audit. We're adding Councillor Olson, and I believe my name should be taken off. If I did stay on, there would be 4 members of council on it.
Thank you for that, Ms. Councillor Stewart. Madam Clerk.
So I need a seconder for that amendment, and that was pending some information with regard to the 4th member. We now have that information, so Councillor Stewart is wishing to step away.
Okay, and we need a seconder.
I see Councillor Hahn's hand up.
Yep,
Is that to
exactly.
second the motion, Councillor? Thank you. So the amendment is to remove Councillor Stewart from the Schedule Q Finance and Audit Committee. So we'll take a vote on that first, starting with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
And that's carried. Are there any further questions or comments with regard to the remaining bylaws?
Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Seeing none, we'll call the vote. Councillor Wink. Oh, you're muted.
Muted, sir.
Your mic is muted, Councillor.
Sorry, just point of clarification. Did we confirm the correct spelling of the street?
Ms. Weens?
Mr. Mayor, through you, it's Brayden.
Yeah, thank you.
So if there's a change required in the bylaw, I have the administrative authority to be able to do that.
Perfect.
Okay, so Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
That motion carries as amended. Members of council, the next item on the agenda is the motion to, I have 2 notices of motion listed next on the agenda. First is Councillor Hildebrand.
Okay. Councillor?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. My motion deals with 2 years in office, and it deals with policies and procedures. Let me review my observations for the last 2 years. Year 1 of council, we approved a payout of a large amount because of a design problem with the Fenwick stormwater pond. This is the second stormwater pond I have been involved in where there's been a significant design or inspection error. The other one came before I was a councillor. Significant costs were involved. Now we have many stormwater pond complaints, and the stormwater pond at the corner of Bryce and Highway 20 is in question. I see subdivisions at elevations where they are designed, where these new homes look into the neighborhood backyards and windows when they're not 2-story buildings. Roof lines of these new homes blocking high skyline views. I've reviewed East Fawn Hill and the MCC in detail and seen where the same consultant engineer and inspector are used by everyone, and this trend continues today. No peer reviews that I'm aware of for the electrical design, for example, at the complex MCC was ever done. In my view, this is a lack of transparency and a conflict of interest at the very least. This is what I'll be addressing. My motion is one where I address what I believe my responsibilities are to address these issues and other issues as a councillor and council. The next part of the motion will be requesting staff to inform council of the policies and procedures guiding the town, and is going to be very specific. I'm not looking for a voluminous number of pages. I'm looking for a concise, clear report. And that's what I believe my next 2 years in council is my assignment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. He did have a seconder, but this one was a seconder.
This is a notice of motion.
Yes, yes.
So the second notice of motion listed on tonight's agenda is Councillor Stewart with regard to legacy projects.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My motion is to direct staff and for staff to include the beautification committee to engage the public and inform them of the various legacy projects available within the town. A range of options, including the costs, should be provided, but not limited to benches, picnic tables, planters, etc. I believe this initiative can be marketed to service clubs, churches, any other type of organization, and also to individuals. I suggest this be advertised on our website, social media, local newspapers, electronic signs, and by posters in such places as the MCC, town hall, libraries, and possibly even within local merchant establishments.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor.
So members of council are just reminded that the motions are to be forwarded to the clerk under the name of the mover and the seconder, and they will be included on the council agenda for the December 7th meeting. So the deadline to provide those to the clerk would be noon on November 30th, Monday the 30th. The next item on the agenda is the motion to move to closed session. Moved by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider the following pursuant to section 239(2)C, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality, file L07-2019-02S. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Not seeing any.
Councillor Hahn?
No.
I'm sorry, Councillor Hahn, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
The motion carries. If members of council will just give me a moment to stop the live stream.